Thanks for listening to the AZ Wildcats podcast brought to you by DraftKings. Great deal going on. Tournament time. Throw down $5 on an NCAA tournament game. If you're a new customer, you get $200 in free plays. All right, joined.
You got to use that promo code PHNX, though. Come on now. Let's go.
Now, joined by the big dog, the GM himself, Mr. Saul Bookman. Arizona wins 87-70. Saul, this is another type of game where Arizona's playing it too close for comfort. But as you called, as we both called, you know you're going to get hit by that run of death at some point, and, well, that run happened.
Yeah, when they were listen, Wright State was right there. No pun intended.
Pun intended.
They were right there. They missed a couple threes when they were just down by 8, and I felt like if they dropped any one of those threes, the game would have changed because the crowd was really hoping that would drop. But lucky for the Wildcats, they avoided those big hits and then went on a run of their own and basically put the game away. They went on basically a 10-0 run and then moved it up to a 20-point lead. And after that, you could just tell these guys were on cruise control most of the game. Whether you like that or not, they were.
And, a lot of people are saying, well, what's going on with the turnovers? Granted, the turnovers aren't great, but when you let guys play, when you let them express themselves, you're dealing with a lot of kids out there. I think a lot of people think that everybody's Justin Kier and they're 24, 25 years old. You still look at it. Benn Mathurin's 19 years old. Dalen Terry, 19. Julius Tabell is 20. When you give guys this kind of freedom, again, there's going to be some turnovers. And again, it's not ideal, but that's what everyone's talking about. 10 turnovers in the first 10, 12 minutes of the game. That's something that's certainly got to clear it up, though, if they're going to be playing Seton Hall or TCU next round.
It's odd when you play a smaller team. It's a little funky. You don't really have any experience doing it throughout the regular season, except for in the non-conference season. And usually those games are at home, so you got all the advantages to yourself. So it's 19 turnovers at one point was way too much. And it was more of just careless turnovers, not being strong with the ball, keeping the ball at your chest, the backdoor passes that just bad reads overall. They'll clean that up for the next game against TCU or Seton Hall, whoever that should be. I'm not too concerned about that. But you'd like to think that they had learned their lessons through the course of the season, but we all know, especially in the first half, they've just been characteristically sloppy with the ball.
Yeah, Saul, and this team, just watching them up close, again, Wright State was game, but at the same point, when you've got, and they went with the 7-foot duo a big portion of the game with Christian Koloko and Umar Ballo, that's a tough thing to be able to replicate in practice, and that certainly was something that Wright State had an issue with going down the stretch right there.
I mean, every team, most teams in the country are going to have a problem with that. The high-low action wasn't there tonight. Give Wright State credit. They basically minimized that as best they could. However, it's the dribble penetration over to the big man that Wright State could not deal with. I thought the Wildcats didn't do that enough tonight, penetrating to the basket. They like to run the dribble handoff series quite a bit, but I never saw them penetrate to the point where they were strong with the ball, could throw it up to throw the lobs up to Koloko and Ballo, and they did that towards the end of the game, and that's why they started to go on the run and really extend the lead.
You know what? This game threw me off a little bit because I thought when Arizona got off early, especially when you're looking at a guy like the Tucson Skyline, I see you right there, Nick Howard. When you've got a guy that's going off like Dalen Terry, he to me is always kind of the X factor because he can do a lot of different things. But when he gets a couple of drives to the bucket, when he gets a little floater in there, that usually is a really good sign of things to come. Didn't quite happen that way, but again, he's the guy that I think they're trying to get off early. Talking with some people behind the scenes a little bit, he's like, listen, Ben's going to be able to get his. Azulis is going to be able to get his. If you could get Dalen Terry going, it becomes a different animal entirely.
I mean, Dalen Terry is the straw that really stirs the drink from a really good Wildcat team to a great Wildcat team. We saw that even in the Pac-12 tournament. In the championship game, Dalen Terry predominantly was the one that was kind of, he had the sauce, if you know what I mean. You know what I'm saying?
He's the one that can do a little bit of everything.
Yeah. Benedict Mathurin is your go-to scorer. And when he's on, there's probably not a guy in the country that can stop him. Mm-hmm. But Dalen Terry does it on both ends. And he comes with that kind of swagger that really kind of pushes. If you don't have Kerr Kriisa out there to kind of get the juice going, it's got to be Dalen Terry right now. And that's going to be the future.
Speaking of Kerr Kriisa, it's weird. Kerr Kriisa, even when Justin Kier's in there, and even when Justin Kier's turning the ball over, I still feel comfortable with him out there. There is just a presence. There is a little bit of a swag about him that you could just tell he's a little bit older than everybody else. He gets it in a certain manner that I think other people just don't because, let's be honest, they don't have those life experiences. But I continuously watch him and say, if there is a better backup option in the country than Justin Kier, I'd love to see it because he does a little bit. Talk about Dalen Terry doing a little bit of everything. Justin Kier's kind of that same role. You know,
you guys probably didn't see it as much, but in the second half, with about 4 or 5 minutes left, Wright State was still trying to apply some pressure, and the Wildcats kind of got a little hung up. It was Dalen Terry, Benn Mathurin, and I'm just talking about him. No. Dalen Terry, Justin Kier. Sorry, I'm getting confused. Anyway, the ball luckily went out of bounds, and Justin Kier basically went after both of them and said, "Clean your shit up." Right. Like this is we're being too careless with the ball. You need to come to the ball when I pass it to you. He's yelling at Benn Mathurin, and Benn Mathurin, to his credit, was just like, all right, I got you. He kind of shook his head like, you're right. Justin Kier is going to play with that desperation because he knows this is it for him, right? These other guys, they don't have that experience. They don't understand what is really on the line. Like, this is it. You lose this game, you're out. Right. And you definitely don't want to be a 16 beating a 1, right? So I really appreciated that kind of. You know, he might be the only one on the team with that experience.
Yeah,
you know
I mean, I would certainly think he is. You know, I think people look at it and they say, well, there's not a ton of freshmen on this team, but that doesn't mean that these guys aren't young, though. All these players, when you look down this roster, when you go from Azuolas Tubelis to Christian Koloko to Benn Mathurin, these are all players that haven't been there. So yes, they've played before, but Saul, I mean, you know, you've covered a lot of stuff over the years. You know, when the tournament lights hit, it's an entirely different animal. And, you know, that's something you can't replicate in practice.
It's been 4 years since I've been to the tournament. Yeah. And yesterday I shoot around. I was like, okay, you know, these guys are ready, you know. And I look at Wright State. I'm like, they got no chance. Physically, they just don't look the part, right? And then you get into the environment and you sit down and you feel the crowd. More importantly, you feel the crowd that isn't U of A fans starting to pull for the opposition, which immediately turns from a U of A crowd to a Wright State crowd. Mm-hmm. And I'm telling you, if one of those threes would have dropped, it would have been too close for comfort for all of us watching this game. But luckily, the Wildcats are such a good team. They can afford to have a lot of miscues and still beat you by 20. Like, that's how good they are.
You mentioned the point about Justin Kier kind of getting up in Benn Mathurin's grill a little bit. And you know what I like about this team? Whenever somebody gets in the other person's face, there's never any defensive-ness. Yeah. It's always, I'm trying to help you, man. I mean, I've been here before. Obviously, we all know that Justin Kier isn't the player that Benn Mathurin is, but that doesn't mean that he doesn't have an ability to be able to say, listen, man, you got to be doing this right here. And like you said, they always take it. And I think that's a little bit of an indicator of what they're dealing with their coach. You watch Lloyd up and down. We're going to talk about him a lot going on. But this team just has a chill factor to it where, you could get in someone's face, but it's not personal.
No. You listen, you got to be able to give constructive criticism, right? And you're in the trenches. You got to be able to fix things immediately. Right. You don't have time to sugarcoat and be like, hey, man, maybe next time you could make that backdoor cut instead of coming to me. You know what I mean? Like, no. Hey, use the back door so we can get easy 2 points, man. What are you doing? So it's funny that we were just talking about how young they are, but their maturity when it comes to criticism is next level.
Right. Yes. And all right. Questions about Kerr Kriisa asking if he plays. Your guess is as good as mine. One thing I will say.
No.
You can tell. No. You can tell when you see him that bruise, that ankle bruise, that's all the way up his leg. That was no joke. I mean, that was something that,
What I will say is, I know he's improved, and everybody's seen videos out there. We watched him in practice yesterday. This is what Kerr Kriisa can do and what he can't do right now. Right now, he can shoot the ball stationary. He can jump. But it's those unpredictable moves when you got to play defense and you can't dictate where you're going. Right. That's the concern right now. And until he gets to a point where the medical staff feels comfortable with him being able to cut on a dime and really run full speed up and down the court, he's not going to play. A lot can happen in a day or two, but if I had to make a guess, I'd probably say I would wager towards not.
I would agree with that. Jeff Mojave makes a really good point right there about, wondering, does this team get a little bored out there? We'll talk about that in just a second. But you know what's not boring, Saul? The DraftKings Sportsbook app. Code word
I love those
PHNX.
setups.
Here's the deal. You throw down $5 on a tournament game right now, new customers only, obviously. And if that team wins, you get $200 in free plays. New customers only. Eligibility restrictions do apply. If you got a gambling problem, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP. I'll give you a perfect example here, Saul. Let's say, you know what? I'm a new customer to the DraftKings Sportsbook app, and I'm going to put in code word PHNX, and I'm going to back the A here. If you would back the A, you put down $5, you'd have $200 to play with. That simple, that easy. All right, let's get back to the comments here. Jeff Mojave makes the point, and a couple people have made that point on here where he said, you know, does this team get a little bit bored at times? And, you know, I think that's reasonable, but at the same time, if you get bored once out here, you're done. And so that's something. I mean, that's cool against Washington State. Well, it's not cool.
Wright State, yeah,
or just
or even Washington State, yeah.
But I mean, you know, Seton Hall's another animal. You know, you get into that next round against a Kofi Coburn, we already know that's a different thing. So you can't be thinking about that mindset, otherwise you're gone.
Oh yeah, I mean, and TCU is a really good defensive team as well. So like TCU, Seton Hall. Listen, they're bigger teams. It's a little bit easier for you to manage against teams that you are familiar with size-wise, right? Like nobody out here outside of maybe Texas Tech, which we'll get into a little bit. It has like unbelievable size, but they're bigger than the team that they just played, and it aligns more with what they see in the Pac-12 and other non-conference games. So moving forward, I think you'll see a much more spirited Arizona team on Sunday. I think they'll play with more energy more than anything. I think today it was hard for them to manufacture that energy because you see it says Wright State on their jersey. You're like, who the hell are these guys? It doesn't really matter. We're Arizona. And then you feel the pressure a little bit. They did step up in every single wave. It felt like they did step up, got a key bucket to kind of stem the tide, keep Wright State at bay, at arm's length. And
here's the difference, too. You're probably not going to lose to a 16 seed. I know Virginia says high, but at the end of the day, you're probably not going to lose to them. An 8 and a 9 seed is an entirely different situation there because you're dealing with a team. If you're an 8 or a 9, they probably, just by where they've probably been flirting in that top 25 all season. And so, again, it's not dealing with a team that just got in there. It's dealing with a team that's probably been at the top of that mark pretty much all season. So, again, going to be playing a different animal entirely. And speaking of different animals, you and I kind of, and listen, I should take your word for it. I didn't until I got in there. Texas Tech, just real quick. That is one of the teams that just looking at up close, you're like, wow, you're almost as big as Arizona is.
I mean, they're thick.
Right.
They're big. They're physical. They're athletic. I thought in the second half they got a little winded, but if there's a team out there that they're not in Arizona's part of the bracket, so I'm not too concerned about it. But
funny to see.
If there's a team that I would say from the eye test really played the part. They came out juiced today. They had a lot of energy. Texas Tech is somebody you kind of keep your eyes on.
Okay, Azuolas Tubelis is a guy that Tommy Lloyd has talked about all season. That, you know, Azuolas can play. It's about him being able to go against the best teams and really carve out his space. He made that point against Illinois earlier in the season when Arizona wins, and Tubelis got the ball 5 out of the first 7 possessions here. I look at him right now, Saul, and I still think to myself, I know kind of what Benn Mathurin can give me, but Tubelis is still the one, as good as he is. I'd always like to be able to look at that box score and say something like 17 and 10 every single game, because we've seen it up close. And Sean, will get to your question in a second. That is the kind of that's what I want to see from a guy like that has that physical capability.
Tubelis is a little frustrating, I think. You know, he's a little frustrating to a lot of Arizona fans, to myself. You know, I'm sitting there, I'm watching. You feel like he could easily drop 20, but for whatever reason, you know, he's a little hesitant, and he's a little sloppy with the ball. We talk about careless turnovers. He probably has the most careless turnovers out of anybody on the team. As we move forward, you're gonna need him to step up because I'm telling you, you need a third scorer. You need a consistent scorer more than anything, because you got Ben. You need a consistent other guy.
And there's something that's a little odd about him at time. And again, the guy's an all-conference caliber player, but you know, to the talented players, we hold you to a little bit higher of a standard. I'm not going to be sitting here and saying that I need Grant Whiteman to be able to do this for me, you know. But there's times, and you and I were talking about it, where he's got the wide open 15-footer and he's not even looking at the rim. And then, you know, he takes the shot, and then Benn Mathurin looks at him like, take that shot right there. Yeah. And I think that's something you'd like to see. And again, I don't feel he can handle the ball a little bit, but I don't feel great about him when he's in the open court right there. My rule with the Azuolas is 2 dribbles and out. That's
that's it for every big.
Right. Okay. Now, Sean Seeley said, and I think it's a great question, U of A fans, as far as, Wright State fans. Now, the one thing I did notice, Wright State definitely did. I don't want to say they had Wright State fans here, but you did have fans cheering for an underdog for sure.
I mean, that's every NCAA tournament. Right. Everybody loves an underdog. It's unlike the Pac-12 tournament where everybody has their allegiances and they could care less if another conference team wins. When you're here and you feel it, like everybody wants the underdog to win. That's just how it is. So if you're not a U of A fan, you want Wright State to pull that upset because it's something that historically you've only seen once, right? So it's a different breed. It's a completely different animal, but we're past that now. Yeah. Now, you're talking about the top 32 teams in the country after this point. Right. And so Arizona will come ready. I'm 1,000% positive of that on Sunday.
And it's a cliche, but it's such a true cliche. Then it doesn't even matter how you win. Now you want to blow out.
Survive in advance, baby.
Survive in advance. Arizona fans have been on the wrong end of upsets. So you don't take any game for granted right here. I will be curious to see what that point spread comes out with coming out. And the only place that I would look for that would be the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Code word PHNX. All right. Throw down $5 on that game or any game if you're a new customer, and then you get $200 in free plays if that team wins. That's simple. How about that for a transition right in there? But it's really that simple. It's the best sportsbook app out there by a mile. Not even close. And again, if you want to back the A and you're a new customer, throw down $5, get $200 in free plays. Code word PHNX. That's simple.
Also, we see this beautiful skyline behind us. This is SDSU. Viejas is just on the other side of us. All the other camera crews are over there because you're not allowed to film inside the arena. That's why we're not inside. So that's why we're out here. But It's beautiful.
Oh, it's absolutely beautiful. And the thing about being on assignment, if you got to be on assignment in San Diego, yes, please. And so now we got Seton Hall and we've got TCU about to tip off. If you look at the prognosticators and exactly how which teams they view giving Arizona bigger struggle, Seton Hall's a more athletic team. They're a little bit older. But when you're an 8 or a 9, it's still at that stage to me, Saul, it's more about what you do than about what the other team does. And I think Arizona's got to be able to do what they do, because if they do what they do, and again, I know it sounds cliche. I generally hate cliches, but you take care of business there, it doesn't really matter.
1,000,000%. Like, Arizona is one of the best teams in the country for a reason. It's because they out execute everybody and they have size. That's the other thing. It's like the size cannot be underestimated.
Right.
Against Seton Hall and TCU, yes, they're physical. Yes, they're not powerhouses in their conference, but they're really solid teams in their conference. Right. Arizona can dictate everything on their own terms. Right. So I expect that to happen on Sunday.
Yeah, and again, a lot of people are asking about Kerr Kriisa. I got a couple more messages. Here, Saul, you played some basketball in your day.
A long time ago,
but again, look this man up. He's not saying it, I'm saying it. AIA scores, or AIA record books right there. But you can't hurry an ankle injury of that magnitude. No. It just takes time. So I think when people say or think, oh, well, he's icing it, he's getting heat, he's getting compression, Justin Kokoski's the best in the business, which he is, but there's still only so much you could do if you've got a 3-week injury right there, and you're going to be limited. You and I watched it yesterday. This was not and again, people, I think, are happy that they just see Kerr Kriisa jogging in a straight line. When you watched him move in and out, it was not the same Kerr Kriisa. It just wasn't.
No, it hurts. It hurts to watch, even though it doesn't seem like it hurts him to be out there and be active and mobile and stuff like that. So I can't see a scenario in which he plays on Sunday. Mm-hmm. I know everybody. I've even seen some people on Twitter talking about, it'd be nice just to give him 5 minutes, just to get him some reps. Like, you don't want to put him out there for 5 minutes and then risk further injury. Right. And that's probably what would happen at this point, because that bruising is awful looking. And his mobility is a little bit limited right now. So unless Mr. Miyagi comes in out of nowhere and, seizes that thing up. And
let's be honest here, too. This is already a guy. We're not talking about a Baron Davis from an athletic standpoint that, you take down, 15% of my lateral movement and I'm still quicker than you. This is a guy that survives on heel. Yeah. This is a guy that survives on being able to shoot the shot, get his people set up. And if you take away 25 or 30% of Kerr Kriisa, that's just not the same dude. That's not who he is right there.
Yeah.
So I'm with you. One thing I will say, though, is when you've got two guys, when you've got a guy like a Lloyd, when you've got a guy like a Justin Kokoski, they know what they're doing. You don't have to look at it and say, okay, man, we've got this renegade doctor right here. It's just saying this is a man that knows 100% what he's doing right now.
For sure. Sorry, we got a lot of people walking to the elevators and stuff like that. So we're right by the elevator. So it's the best spot we can get to.
Yeah,
so.
And I'm still all right. So let's see. Military told me to take ibuprofen when I had the same injury. It's a little bit. It's a little bit more serious than that. I would
just
say.
A little bit. Just a little bit.
That's going to be really. Big.
Yeah, I mean, you should probably soak in milk or whatever. Maybe some John the Conqueror root and put it on your ankle or something like that. It's a high ankle sprain too. Right. Those typically take a much longer to come back
for sure. But also, we've been talking this entire season about depth, about how this team, you've got the starting lineup of Kerr Kriisa, Benn Mathurin, Dalen Terry, Azuolas Tubelis, Christian Koloko. But then you bring in Pelle Larsson, you bring in Umar Ballo, you bring in Justin Kier. It's time to use that depth. And that's why you have it right here, to be able to have a guy like Kier. And I'm sorry, again, in my opinion, even if you're without Kerr Kriisa, if you can't beat Seton Hall with Justin Kier out there and still that 7-man rotation, putting a little bit of Adama Ball in there, who we're going to get to in just a moment, then you know what? That's just the way it is. You should be able to still beat that team.
Yeah. I mean, listen, Seton Hall and TCU are not better than UCLA. No. They're not better than USC. I know USC lost today, but listen, they're not better than those two teams. So you should be able to handle business without them. I'm 1,000% confident in this team. I think they're going to learn from this. And, it's always good to get the first one out of the way to understand what the environment's like and how you feel about it. So on Sunday, I'm just positive that they're going to come out with far more energy, and we'll see a different Wildcat team for sure.
Tina, I 100% want TCU. I've watched both these teams once. Seton Hall's a little bit more athletic. I think they can flex you a little bit more. I would rather play. I'd rather play TCU than Seton Hall.
Agreed.
All right, Adama Ball. This is a guy that Tommy Lloyd has been talking about all season, about how he wants to get him some run. But every single year, Saul, you hear somebody say, "I want to get the guys some run," and it just never really happens. Mm-hmm. This is a heck of a time for this young man to start getting some run right here. The NCAA tournament, the Pac-12 tournament, and when you're putting in a guy like that, a freshman who's still very wet behind the ears, and he comes in and he nails 2 mid-range jumpers to begin with, you can tell, and again, I'm not saying that he's going to be succeeding Benn Mathurin, because nobody's going to be doing that. But this is a guy that Tommy Lloyd obviously has big ideas on going forward next season.
Yeah, the moment is just not too big for him. Yeah. He had 2 clutch threes against UCLA in the Pac-12 championship. Right. I thought those threes helped stem the tide a little bit to keep U of A in it, because it looked like it was about to get away from him for a little bit. In this game, same thing. It was kind of like, the Wright State was trying to get back in the game, and he just kept hitting jumpers, and he just seems with it. And I will say this: give him a year to get a little bit of size, get with strength coaching, and Chris Rounds, and I think you're going to see a much different guy next season with that shooting. I think he's one of the better shooters on the team anyway. Right. I'm excited to see what comes for him.
Let's talk about the confidence level of this team right here. One other thing you should have confidence, though, is in Go PHNX. You should go there and get the membership. We have everything covered throughout the state. Wildcats, the Sun Devils, the Coyotes, the Suns, the Cardinals, the Diamondbacks. Saul, you're a jack of all trades right now. You're on a little bit of everything right there.
Sometimes it's out of necessity.
Right? It's out of necessity, but you know what? This is the place. This is kind of the future of everything going on in the state right now. It's a community feel, and you go on there, and again, you get the membership, you get a free T-shirt out of it, you get some pretty cool stickers. You got a lot of different things that you can get out right there. So, and again, hit the AZ Wildcats subscribe button on there, and check out the other stuff that they got going on, because Saul, you got a real community feel going up.
Oh, absolutely. We that's one of the reasons why we didn't name this. I know on Apple Podcasts and stuff like that. It's the AZ Wildcats podcast, is because hello PHNX. Maybe you guys got a little turned off by the PHNX tagline. We don't want to say Phoenix Wildcats or PHNX Wildcats, because that's what association would have been. So we called this AZ Wildcats because we are Arizona. Like, I don't care what anybody says in Phoenix. I don't care what anybody says in Flagstaff. Like, this school represents the state the best, period. Mm-hmm. End of story. So that's why we called it AZ Wildcats. We would love for your support, especially when it comes to PHNX as a whole, because we support all the teams. You don't have to support the Sun Devils. That's fine. We just want you to embrace us and embrace this guy, because he's doing a killer job.
Okay, now let's just talk about, because you and I have watched Arizona basketball for a long time right now. This team, and I want to give Tommy Lloyd some kudos right here. And by the way, we're going to be having Dave Hickey on tomorrow about 2 o'clock, so make sure that you set your dial for that. Dave's obviously made some pretty good moves this past year, so look forward to hearing from him. But Saul, you watched this team. We watched him up close. We watched him at practice. I think so much of their coolness factor stems from their coach. And you and I were talking about, you could just watch Tommy Lloyd and his coaching staff just coach all day, just how they do it.
Yeah, remember how we would see Miller run up and down the court and scream at guys, call every single play out. Yeah. Like, Tommy Lloyd doesn't do that. Tommy Lloyd will make his impact. He will give his 1 or 2 cents. But then the coaching staff, I swear it's like a rotation of different guys, offense, defense, everything in between. It's a different man that is stepping up and saying, hey, we need to do this, or you need to do this. Like, Tommy Lloyd not only empowers his players, but he empowers his coaches, which is beautiful. It's beautiful.
And I always like to say this, whenever I have somebody on that play, it's all played at the JUCO level. So again, when you have a coach, whether playing in high school, when you're playing in college, that you go down and you miss a shot or you turn it over, and I don't have to look at him immediately because he's going to be snarling at me. Doesn't that give you so much more confidence the next time down the court to take that shot or to be able to try to thread the needle on that pass that maybe you wouldn't if you were kind of, let's be honest, you're on skates?
Well, this is a perfect example. 2 different coaches, high school, college. High school coach, if I missed a shot, he would tell me, like, hey, your legs are a little heavy. You need to jump a little bit higher. Your legs are a little weak. Get your legs more into your shot. Okay, cool. That's constructive criticism I can use for the next time. I get to college, and why'd you miss that shot? Well, it's not like I wanted to miss the shot, coach. I just missed it. And then no constructive criticism outside of that. Like, you got to teach, and Tommy Lloyd teaches. And Sean Miller's a good teacher, too. Like, we can't take that away from him. But in the moment, you got to be reserved and controlled enough to be able to relay information in a critical time, so that way your players can adjust the way you want them to, because if you don't, they will fall apart. And that happened several times.
And think about just back to when you were 18, 19 years old, everybody out there, and just how fragile you are at that state, because it's not easy. And so, to have a guy like that and to have him joke. Tommy Lloyd, the one thing I've noticed about him too, he always has a little bit of a grin, a little bit of a smirk.
I think it's just his face.
I don't know what it is, but it also resonated yesterday when you had both the guys, when you had Dalen Terry and Benn Mathurin saying he's a little bit of a jokester. I always envisioned him, like, when he's getting on somebody, saying, all right, I got a little quip for him when we get into the locker room.
For sure.
It always looks like he's, storing something in the back of his head.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like yesterday, at the press conference, and somebody had said, kept saying Bryant. And that, he was like, well, that's cool, but, we're not playing Bryant tomorrow. Guarantee Tommy Lloyd remembers that. And the next time he sees that report, he's like, hey, so how's Bryant doing in the tournament? You know what I mean? Like, that's how Tommy Lloyd is.
That's exactly what it is. But everybody out there, really appreciate you hopping on board with us. Again, we're going to be back on live with you tomorrow at 2 p.m. We're staying up here, obviously. We got the Seton Hall TCU game, and we'll be back with you at that point as well. But again, Dave Hickey tomorrow, post-game, following day. Saul, what do you got? Anything else?
Well, hey, just follow us at Go PHNX. We appreciate the support. We're at 1,600 followers. It'd be really cool if we could get to 2,000 by the time we get to, I don't know, maybe the Final Four.
Guys, let's make it happen out there. The thing that's different about this show, and I put this out there all the time, is we want to hear from you, because I'm a fan, you're a fan. Nobody's better, nobody's smarter. We all have our opinions, and I think the thing that makes this show so unique, and a lot of the shows that are over on PHNX, is that we want to hear from you. Yeah. It's the wave of the future. You know what? Nobody wants to hear me speak for 30 straight minutes. Heck, my mom doesn't want to hear me speak for 30 straight minutes. They want to get those comments.
Real quick, somebody had asked earlier about the fans, how many fans were in attendance. It was a pretty good chunk of Arizona fans. I think it was maybe 11,000, 12,000 people in the arena. I would probably wager to guess 4,000 to 5,000 were Arizona fans, maybe a little bit less. But they represented a huge portion of the crowd. Also, the seats are red, so it felt like it was an Arizona crowd anyway, because most of the Arizona fans were wearing red as well. So there's that.
We'll be back with you again tomorrow, though. For everybody out there, really appreciate you. And Tina, I know that you would follow twice if you could. It means the world to me.
Real one right there.
For Saul Bookman, I'm Mike Luke. You've been listening to the AZ Wildcats podcast.